Alright, so I've opened up GIMP here to just kind of show you the process outside of Photoshop. I usually use Photoshop myself, but it appears that GIMP runs in a very similar way to Photoshop, so it should look pretty similar either way, whether you are using Photoshop or GIMP in the future. As you know, GIMP is completely free, alright, so you won't have to worry about buying Photoshop, which is not, right? So once you've downloaded GIMP and opened it up, your next step is going to be to go ahead and open up your UV snapshot, alright? So I've gone ahead and taken a UV snapshot from a project, alright? So I'm just going to go ahead and open it up. Come to File, Open, and I placed mine on my desktop, so I'm just going to go ahead and double click that guy. It's going to open it up in a window for me right here. I can pull on the corner here to resize this however I want. I'm going to make it kind of bigger so I can see what I'm doing. Now you'll notice that my snapshot here is black with white outlines. So it's going to be a little difficult in this kind of a mode for me to see what I'm doing with my color maps. Okay. So basically the way that Photoshop and GIMP work are using what's called layers. Okay. So basically, you can kind of imagine layers as a whole lot of different sheets of paper all stacked one on top of the other, okay? And so each separate layer you can put separate parts of your drawing on, or photo, or whatever you have, okay? So right now, over here, this little window, it says Layers, Brushes. This is where our layers are. We can view all the different layers that we have. Right now we only have one. It's this Sample Tooth UV layer, and yours will probably be called something different, just depending on how you name your UV snapshot. Alright, so this is where we can kind of control each of our layers. Something to note here is this little first box with an eyeball in it. Okay, you can click on that and it will toggle the visibility of your layers. These are very similar in some ways to the layers that you see in Maya, okay? So you can imagine this is your visibility button just like in Maya, right? Okay, so in these programs, whenever you see these kind of checkers, basically the checkers just represent transparency, okay? So anywhere that you're seeing checkers like this means that there is no color information, it's not black, it's not white, it's just completely transparent and clear, alright? Just something that's good to know. Alright, so I'm going to turn that back on. I'm actually going to be working with a few different layers here. So I'm going to have to add a couple of new layers, okay? So the way you do that is just to come right down here to this little button that looks like a blank sheet of paper with a little dog ear on it, okay? You can click on that. It's going to pop up with this new layer window. It's just going to call itself layer, and it's going to be whatever width and height you have your original image set to, okay? And we also can choose right off the bat whether we want this layer to be transparent, white, or a variety of colors that we can choose for the background and foreground. For this particular layer, I'm going to choose white, okay? It's going to come right in, and now you can see we've got this nice white area. And it's, again, you might be wondering, whoa, what happened to my UV set? It's still there, it's just underneath this white layer, okay? So we can't see it at the moment unless we toggle the visibility, alright? It's still there, it's just hanging out underneath. So I'm actually going to move this white layer that I have so that it's underneath my UV layer, okay? Basically, just because I want my color to be visible underneath my lines, alright? So I've got my guidelines right here on my tooth UV layer, and I still want to be able to see those. I don't want to cover those up because otherwise I'm not going to know what I'm supposed to be painting here, alright? So all I have to do really is just click and drag this layer over here, okay? And just let it go when you see this black line showing up underneath. And it's just going to rearrange those layers. So now my UV layer is on the top now, and this white layer that I created is on the bottom. Okay. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use this to sort of reverse the colors that I have going on here in my UV layer, and I'm also going to do it in such a way that I will now be able to see information on layers that are underneath this UV layer, okay? It's a little tricky. I think the book may explain it a little better. You will want to read through that, even though it's set up for Photoshop. A lot of the concepts are going to be very, very similar. So what I'm going to do with mine, and you know, this may actually deviate slightly from the book as well. I'm going to go ahead and let's see, let me show you this little menu up here. Okay, so I made sure I'm on my sample tooth UV layer, okay? And there's a little box up here that says mode. Alright, I can click and drag, and there are a lot of different modes that I can choose from here. The one that we're going to choose this time is going to be difference. Alright, and I'm not really going to go into a detailed explanation of what exactly that means or does or anything like that, since again this isn't really a class about Photoshop so much as it is Maya or GIMP. So, alright, now we've got the colors reversed. I'm going to add one more layer, so I'm just going to click on this white layer that we have here. I'm going to add one more layer, alright, using that same button. This one I'm going to make transparent, okay? So make sure you have that transparency box checked. Hit OK. So now I've got my UV layer, my transparent layer, and a white background layer, okay? So what we've been able to do is actually now when we paint on this layer that is underneath our UV sample layer, we'll be able to see that paint without painting over our lines, okay? So let's go ahead and try painting something. So when you're ready to start painting, you're going to make sure that you are on this checkered layer that we created, this transparent layer, okay? Should probably just say layer number 1. So make sure that you have that one selected before you start painting, and then you're going to come over here to your toolbox, and there's this little tool here that looks just like a little paintbrush, okay? So you'll click on that guy, alright? Now there are a number of settings down here that you can use to adjust how you want your paintbrush to behave, okay? I believe this is the default here is probably something like 20 something, okay? So when you start out, your paintbrush may be too large or too small, you know, you'll just want to adjust it using this size adjuster. You can see when I hover over, you can see this little dotted circle outline wherever my mouse is, alright? That's going to indicate the size of my brush, alright? So I'm going to put it to something like this, and now when I click and drag, you can see have all this lovely paint coming out of my paintbrush. Alright. Now of course I don't want that. So if you ever mess up or you don't like something that you did, you can either erase it using the eraser, which I'll show you in just a moment, or you can simply come up to Edit, Undo Paintbrush, alright? And that'll just undo the last stroke that you've done, okay? I'll also show you now how to use the eraser. So let's say I painted something, I don't really like it, I don't want it to be there, so we can actually come over to this little pink square. This is a little pink rubber eraser, I guess, and you can click on that. That's going to be your eraser. The controls for your eraser are very much the same as the brush. So, you know, you've got your size and everything, and aspect ratio and angle. Don't worry too much about those. Just the size really is the important bit there. And you can, again, just click and hold, and it works exactly the same as the paintbrush, except it's erasing instead of painting, okay? So I'm going to grab my paintbrush again. Obviously, I probably don't want black shark teeth, okay? So let's give it a nice, healthy pink gum sort of color. Now, if I want to choose a color to paint with, I can just come over here to this box, alright? And this black box right here, if I click on that, it's going to pop up with this foreground color selector, alright? Then I can just simply click and drag over this area here, and I can choose a color that I like. Alright, so I'm going to just pick something like that, okay, for a nice gum color. I'm going to hit OK when I'm satisfied with that color, and then I can just simply come over here, and you can see now when I'm painting, my paintbrush has changed to that color, okay? And I can just paint away. Now, this area right here is going to be representative of the gums of your shark tooth. Okay, and the bottom here is going to be the actual white tooth part. And again, you know, if I go a little crazy over here or something like that, I can always just grab that eraser and clean up those outlines, okay? Now, this is going to be a little easier if you do have a tablet, but if you don't, you know, you can just as well use a mouse to work on this, alright? And if it's something you're really interested in as well, you can find some more affordable tablets than those created by Wacom. Okay. For example, the one that I use is from a company called Monoprice, and it's much more affordable. So there are some alternatives for you, you know, because I can totally understand not having extra cash just floating around for, you know, things like Photoshop or my license or anything like that. That's why we try to keep you guys with some options open, like GIMP, for example, to try to keep the program relatively cost-free for you guys, right? Alright, so, you know, now I've got this nice pink color on my teeth. I'm pretty happy with that, and, you know, I'm fine with leaving the bottom white, but, I mean, I guess if I really want to be picky about it, you know, I could choose a really light green color, something like that, slightly yellow for the teeth, and, you know, I can, oops, grab my paintbrush. I can color that in as well if I'd like to. All right, so I'll just do that quickly. You'll want to take more care, obviously, when you're doing this than what I'm doing right now. So it should look something like that. You know, if there's anything over here outside of the lines, anything at all, it really doesn't matter. The only thing that will show up on your shark is whatever is within these UV outlines that you have created, okay? So if there's any empty space, and you should be trying to keep empty space to a minimum, like for example on this sample UV map, really we didn't use up all the space effectively, okay? So, you know, if you've got some extra space though and you went over the lines and, you know, there's stuff going on out here, it's totally fine. Anything that's on these outside lines is not going to show up on your shark at all. Alright, only the colors that are within your UV lines are going to be showing up on your shark. Alright, so once I've done that, I want to go ahead and save my map, alright, so that I can go ahead and slap it on Sharky. Now, I don't want on my shark tooth all these little lines to appear, okay? When it's time for me to render Sharky, I don't want to see all these little lines, you know, be looking like a great big grid. So I can very easily take these lines away before I save this, okay? Just by coming over here to my UV layer and just checking off the visibility. Now what I have left is just these kind of blobs of color, alright, without the lines. You know, again, we can just toggle this on and off to see what we're looking at. And again, you'll want to do a little better job on that and keep those lines nice and sharp. But that's basically the idea. Your color map should look pretty much like that when you're done with it. I'm going to erase these just because I don't like them hanging around. But yeah, it'll look something like that. And then all that's really left is to go ahead and save this. So we can just come up to File, Save. We can give it a name, whatever we want to name it. I'll just name it Tooth UV. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and go with GIMP XCF image. Alright. I'm going to set it on my desktop. Hit save. Alright, so that allows me to open this up at any time I want to in GIMP and work on it more if I would like to. I also need to save it as an image. Alright, so I'm going to go to File, Export. And this is what's going to allow me to save it as a flattened out image that I can go ahead and then call in Maya. Alright, so for this one, you know, it's going to have the same name, Tooth UV, but this one is coming up as a PNG, which is just a type of image file. Alright, so I'm going to leave that as a PNG, and I'm going to hit Export. It's going to give me all kinds of options. Do I want the background color? You know, do I want the resolution the same? All kinds of crazy stuff like that. But, you know, this is all fine, so you can just leave that just as it is. Hit Export. It's going to do its thing there. And now I should have my image just hanging out there on my desktop, alright? So, let's see. Here it is. ToothUV.png. I can just open it up. There it is. Hooray! Okay, so the last step would be to bring that into Maya. That's going to be the exact same instructions as you see in the book, so you can follow along at that point. Alright? Let me know if you have any questions about anything that we went over today. And that's it for this video, and thanks for watching, and happy painting!